Hey, happy Friday, Lionheart family. It's Rick Alexander, your host for Lionheart Radio. Today's episode is with Justin Wren, and I'm actually going to spare you the advertisements for today's show because I really just want you to get in, hear the show, and hopefully, if Justin's work and what he's doing makes an impact on you, it'll inspire you to take a little bit of action, and he's going to invite you to take action in his cause right now. And I know it certainly touched me, and I've already actually contributed. So, and we'll post that up on the Instagram page. But this show came at a really cool time in my life because I've been thinking a lot about what it means to be successful. Now, we all have our own metrics for what success are. What does your scoreboard look like? Is it the amount of money in your bank account, the amount of plates that are on your bar, the amount of PRs you get, your powerlifting total, your Olympic weightlifting total? Is it your position in the open? You know, we have all these metrics that we use to gauge success. And a lot of times what those we take those metrics and they directly influence our self-worth, right? And the problem is that at the end of the day, when we die, none of those things mean shit. None of these shallow metrics are going to mean a goddamn thing, you know? What people are going to think about and what's going to matter at the end of the day, I think, no matter what your religion is, no matter where you fall in the chart, it's going to be how you impacted the people around you. You know, how did you make people feel? How did they feel when you were around, right? Did they feel like you were constantly bragging about what your scoreboard looked like? Or were you making them feel like they were the most important person in the room? And I know this is a little bit more esoteric than we normally go with this show, but you know, it definitely goes along with the theme. And Justin, who is a absolute beast of an athlete, he's had a really cool story and it's very introspective. And so I invite you to listen to this show and think about what these things mean to you as we go on. And without further ado, Justin Wren. All right, well, welcome back to Lionheart Radio. I'm your host, Rick Alexander, founder of Lou Aviv in San Diego, California. And today I am joined by Justin Wren. Justin is an MMA fighter for Bellator. He's also been featured on The Ultimate Fighter. And more importantly, the reason that we had him on today is to talk about some of his humanitarian work in Africa. So, Justin, thanks for being on.
Hey, man, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So you typically, we are an active lifestyle podcast, so I like to kind of get a background for the listeners on maybe what your fitness background is. So I know you've been on The Ultimate Fighter and kind of want to see like what got you into UFC in the first place or MMA, I mean.
Yeah, well, I grew up with that being my childhood dream, actually. I discovered that dream at 13 years old. I grew up very heavily bullied. I was the kid that sat at the lunch table by himself, got pelted in the back of the head with chocolate milk spit wads. When I was 13 and found the UFC and found the VHS tapes, I just saw these guys that most likely didn't get bullied. They didn't deal with that. And they knew how to defend themselves. They were athletes, and I fell in love with the human chess match of it. So growing up, I got into wrestling at 15 years old. I had 2 Olympic gold medalists as my high school coaches, which was an incredible opportunity and blessing because no other high school in the nation that I know of had an Olympic gold medalist coaching them at that level. So it was great to learn from the best. You don't develop bad habits that way, or they don't have to rework the habits you developed. But it was awesome. So I ended up becoming a 10-time state champion in Texas, a 5-time All-American, a 2-time national champion. Out of high school, I transferred. I was recruited all the nation's best wrestling colleges, but I went to the Olympic Training Center right out of high school. So I was one of 2 guys to do that. And so that's kind of my background. And then my base in martial arts is just wrestling, jiu-jitsu, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai. And I would say that's the majority of it.
Sure. You mentioned something really cool, getting coached by an Olympian. So that, I think most people, and it doesn't matter if you're wrestling or football or whatever it is, a lot of college or a lot of the fitness world when you're an adult is actually just unlearning all of those bad habits you got from the high school bigger, stronger, faster programs or whatever it is.
Right. No, it was incredible. My 2 coaches were Kenny Monday and Kendall Cross, and I was in Texas, which isn't very known or isn't well known for wrestling, but Oklahoma is, and these are 2 Okies. both Oklahoma State Cowboys. I think both were 3-time NCAA champs, and many, many, many times state champions. So to be taken under their wing, to learn under their tutelage, it was an incredible opportunity. I still struggled. I only won one match in my first year and a half of wrestling, and it was just by 1 point. But they were drilling in me doing – I think a lot of people make mistakes trying to learn 1,000 different moves and to drill them 10 times each, and you think you know 1,000 moves. And their whole mindset was, hey, let's do 1 or 2 moves and drill those each 1,000 times, and you master it and you own it. You own those moves to where if you hit it, you're going to get it. And so they drilled that into me until, and then we start something called chain wrestling. And so you build off of those moves and you link these chains together in a sequence. And so they were able to do that with me. And I struggled. I had that, kind of not victim mindset, but I had been bullied so much that I went on the mat already beaten before I got out there. I was very timid. I was hesitant. I would telegraph my moves. I would show it before I did it. And so the guys knew how to counter it, or if they didn't counter it, they at least knew how to defend it. And so eventually, though, whenever I just started to believe in the coaching that I was getting and the moves, because I had drilled them over and over and over in the training room, they said, hey, go out there, no pressure, just hit it. Just go out there and do it. Don't second guess yourself. Do it. And when I did that, I ended up going from winning 1 match in a year and a half to then, I think, 2 years later, I only lost 1 match, right? And so the year in between there, I remember just, steamrolling a lot of opponents on the state level.
Right.
And then it was the national level that was tougher for me.
And you were 13 when you first got on the mat, you said?
I was 13 when I found MMA. I was 15 whenever I started wrestling.
Okay. So I'm curious, like, maybe what your advice is. So I was actually talking to my girlfriend about this the other day. So I'm curious about what your opinion is on whether parents should get their kids into something like fighting in order to preventative maintenance, right, for something like bullying or what you went through. I know it's kind of an offhand question.
No, I think it's great. And honestly, I wish I would have gotten into it sooner. I think it was the perfect timing for me, but the only better time would have been sooner, I guess. It wasn't. And so I see a lot of kids now, and I've gotten the opportunity, very fortunate to have had written a book and one of the chapters about bullying, and been invited to a lot of schools after maybe a teacher or principal or parent reads my book, and be able to go in there and talk to the kids. And I hear so many testimonials, just stories of kids that were going through it at an earlier age than I was. I was 13 years old and suicidal, clinically diagnosed with depression. And man, if I would have had martial arts as an outlet, I don't know. I'm at a gym right now. I've always been a part of fight teams, but now I'm a part of an academy, a mixed martial arts academy, with Rafael Lovato Jr., the best American or most accomplished American in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with the most world medals and world championships and things like that. And the way he teaches those kids and the rest of the staff teaches those kids, man, I wish I would have had that growing up. And I see the lives of these kids coming in and just the change in them, like the confidence that comes, not like an arrogant confidence, like a humble confidence, like they're just more confident in who they are. And I love that.
Yeah, because there comes the actual physical aspect of, like, you can actually defend yourself. But then there's the whole empowerment aspect that plays so much deeper into the psyche, I think.
I would say that's the biggest part. It's one thing to know you're strong and you can defend yourself and you have the techniques, but it's learning and growing and challenging yourself and getting out of your comfort zone and all the strengths that you build from martial arts, from challenging yourself. There's so many things that are applicable to life instead of just defending yourself or being in a fight. You grow so much as an individual.
Right. Sure. So you have so much good stuff going on with your fighting career and with the way that you're giving back fighting. And so what I really wanted, because I know we are on a little bit of a time constraint for today's interview, I want to get into why the big humanitarian shift in something that's so far outside of the expertise of a fighter per se?
Yeah. Man, it's a crazy long story. I'll try to sum it up in the best I can. But man, I found that childhood dream. The dream became a reality. At 19 years old, I was fighting professionally, youngest heavyweight in the country, 21. I got selected for the Ultimate Fighter, 22. We were filming that. I was the youngest guy there by years and years. I think like 6, 7, 8 years. I was the youngest by far. And so the dream became reality, but something started to shift whenever like that didn't like fulfill me. That was all my significance, all my identity was being that fighter, and all my value depended on if I was going to be successful at that. And the only success I saw was world champion. And so, man, I ended up becoming just to sum it up, a depressed, drunk drug addict. Where, and to sum that up, I would go on these long binges of opioids, and it started from an injury. The doctors would just easily just cram pain pills not down my throat, but they would give me tons and tons of pills, and I had an abundance of them. I was getting 120 from one doctor, 90 from another, and 60 from another, and this was Oxy, and so just wipe away an entire month, and I would do that every month.
That's Western medicine, right? Just put a Band-Aid on the problem.
Yeah, man, and I liked
Treat the
that
symptom.
Some of the pain, but I really enjoyed that it numbed my depression, or at least made me feel like it did. And it got to the point to where, man, after a couple of weeks, I feel like, but it really intensified after months, and especially after years, where my mind didn't just want it, my body physically needed it. And it got real tough to where I remember my best friend calling me and leaving a voicemail. And on the other line, my best friend was saying, "I can't believe you missed my wedding. I can't believe my best man didn't show up." It was because I was off on an 8-week-long drug binge with Coke and all the Oxy and just tons of different stuff. Whatever was available, I would just piggyback it. And I just used once or twice.
And you were still competing at this time?
Yeah, I mean, I stacked up a record of, I think, 12-2 during the addictions.
God damn.
Yeah, I was, I don't know, I could be a high performer whenever I needed to be, and I could cover up my addictions really well until I couldn't, and then it all fell apart, and I get kicked off my fight team. I was, training with Rashad Evans and Shane Carwin and Brendan Schaub and Nate Marquardt and Dwayne Bang Ludwig, and even GSP would come through there a lot. Just so many, Cowboy Cerrone, so many top name guys. And it was 34-1 whenever they took the team vote, and I got voted off the team. And that's all going to be part of a documentary that's coming out soon. Them even telling that story just the turnaround. And so it's, man, whenever I kind of had a life change, a hard look in the mirror, and for me personally, just found my own personal faith. Man, it just, I say God loved the hell out of me. And I just wanted to love people from that point on, where I was always fighting against people and fighting against my own demons, but now I just wanted to fight for people. And I started off small. I love the Aristotle quote, I think it's him. It says, "No act of kindness, no matter how small, ever goes wasted." And so I just looked for opportunities to volunteer, and anywhere I could, I would volunteer. Start off at a children's hospital, then homeless shelter, and then just looked for different things I could do, a drug rehab center, a youth group for at-risk kids. And so it kind of just started off organically that way, just had on a swivel, looking how I can make a difference. And 11 months into sobriety and 11 months into sacrificing my fighting career, I left the sport. I thought it was just going to be for a year. It ended up being 5 years and 2 months where I took off. Didn't step into the gym at all. Had an active lifestyle of sorts, drilling water wells, but I ended up going to the Congo 11 months later and met who have become my second family, closer to me than a lot of my real family. I mean, I love my family, but just I have such a deep connection with the Mabuti Pygmies. in the rainforest of the Ituri rainforest in Congo. And it's just been wild, man. We have 20 full-time employees. They've drilled 65 water wells over the last 6 years. I've been about 2 years, boots on the ground there, 1 year at one time. And we've just done land, water, and food initiatives. We have 3,000 acres of land back for the Mabuti Pygmies. First time they've ever owned land in their history of Congo. And so it's turned into so much. You know, we're teaching them how to do it for themselves. And it's all about the word you used earlier, empowerment. And so how can we empower the people that need it the most? How can we give the power to the people, really?
Yeah, sure. So, man, that's a lot to unpack. So, so if you can go back to after, so I'm curious, were you religious before all of this?
No, not at all. I hated religion. I still have a big distaste for it if it's something dry, dull, and dead, and if it's just rituals and routines, and if it's controlling. Like for me, it's something personal. It's a relationship with God, and I had seen so much fake stuff that it turned me off, turned me away, pushed me away, far, far away. I have a favorite quote. It's from Gandhi. I still like the quote a lot. It says, "I like your Christ, but I don't like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ." And so I'd experienced so much hurt from people of faith or people that called themselves that. And so I wanted nothing to do with it. And so for me, it's about loving God, loving people, and pushing back darkness, fighting the good fight, fighting for people, and me doing that well. And it's not about, I don't know, it's not about all the rules and regulations. It's about loving people.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I'm working on a thing right now where kind of a mini-sode for this show about like how do you measure success. So if you're a fighter, right, you probably measure success based on your record. If you are a CrossFitter, you measure success based on your time in a workout or whatever, right? And we have all of these very tangible measures of success. But I think one of the things that you found in your journey is when you're so focused on that measurement of success instead of the process and instead of the experience of being a human, you get there and then you realize how unfulfilling it really is because it's so short-lived.
Yeah, bro. It was shattering to me because every time I racked up one of those wins, and man, I'm struggling, right? I am going through the hardest hardest opponent I've ever faced, which was addiction and depression. So those two beasts don't compare to any guy I've ever fought in a cage, right? Like those are just animals, and to try to overcome those. So I'm winning in the cage. And I'd get my hand raised, and I honestly, bro, would think this every single time. I challenged a friend of mine who was like, "No, I saw you celebrating one time," and I'm like, "Show me," because after any of my wins, until these last three, whenever I'm doing it not for myself but for others, and using the win bonuses to drill wells and using the platform to share something truly important, because I think life's not about me. Life's about so much more than little me. And so, but when I would get my hand raised prior to this, before the 5-year layoff, I would think, is this it? In the cage, getting my hand raised, in my mind, I'm thinking, is this it? Is this all?
Right.
And then I would instantly think, what's next? And I would instantly have to start chasing something else, or, you win. And so fighting was dangerous. And why I stepped away was because in my addictions and that depression, other fighters might not deal with this as much, or not at all. But if I won or lost, it was a roller coaster ride where you lose, you want to numb yourself. You win, you want to celebrate. And so it was an easy excuse either way to go off and party. So I just fed into my addictions. And so that's why I stepped away.
So let me ask you this, for people that are in a position where they are success driven, right, which would be most of the people that listen to a podcast, especially like this, what advice do you have for them so that they don't end up in that path, I guess, of feeling unfulfilled?
Man, that is a tough question, but I have something I sign my emails as, and I sign the books as, and it will sound cheesy, and that's okay. That what I sign my book saying sounds cheesy, but it has real meaning to me personally. And it says, live to love, love to live. And then I sign my name. But the reason I do that is for a specific reason. I put live to love first because I think my whole life I was chasing a life that I would love to live, and that basically live to love, love to live. And I had it backwards. I had love to live, and then I could live to love others. But really I had to love my life first. I had to get this, I had to get that. I had to achieve, I had to earn, I had to have success, and then I could help others, or then I could do this or that. But really, I never had the time to ever get around to that, because it was all about me. It was all about me. It was all about the house or the car or the money or the fame or whatever. And I was driven by that. I was consumed absolutely wholeheartedly by that. Like, I have to do this and I have to do that. And if I don't, or if I fall short of basically the perfection that I was putting myself, the pedestal I was putting myself on was like, it was just unrealistic. And people have to know, like, part of success is a lot of failure. You're gonna fail on the road to success, and it's just the people that don't give up, that don't quit. I love this quote that's in the academy that I train at, but it says a black belt is a white belt who never quit.
Yeah.
You know, it's just someone that just dug deep, that just kept going. And so I would say in my personal life, the reason I signed that live to love, love to live, is because if I just have my head on a swivel looking to love people and looking to love, I'm going to love the life that I live because of that. If I'm looking to love others and I'm giving and I'm encouraging and I'm doing for others, then just naturally I'm going to love the life that I get to live. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be grateful of it. And it's just something that's been powerful in my own life. It might not make sense to others, but it's what I try to live my life by.
Yeah, that's a really weird thing about like the human experience, because I personally, I feel like I'm one of the people for most of my life. I'm like, well, I think money can probably buy happiness, and I've subscribed to a lot of very like shallow metrics, and it's interesting because no matter what metrics you use, you get to the point where you realize if you're not connecting with the humans around you, like it all means very, very fucking little at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what life's about. People, life's about connection. It's about others. If you have all the money in the world, but you don't have any friends to experience what that money can bring. I'm not against money. I'm just against living for yourself. And
right.
So how can we bring in others? I'm kind of an includer. I want to grab people and pull them along with me on this journey up the mountain. You know, like, hey, let's charge this mountain. I'm charging it, but come along with me and let's share in the spoils.
Yeah, hell yeah. So, Fight for the Forgotten. That's your book you wrote in 2015. Where did that? What does that kind of entail? Is that more of the fight side or the humanitarian side?
It's both. It's my life story. So it's got everything from growing up being bullied, to fighting, to wrestling, winning championships there, to, you know, the workouts and how hard it was, and some of my toughest fights, and then it gets into the transition from the drug addictions to missing my best friend's wedding, to my attempt to suicide, and then to going and living with the pygmies and sleeping in a twig and leaf hut and sleeping on the dirt and being rained on and waking up in the mud. My records pulling 5 roaches out of my beard in one night. But just being adopted in his family, just loving these people, like meeting people that were slaves for the first time. Never knew that still existed, but there's over 27 million slaves on planet Earth today, really? More than ever in history. Yeah. And then when it comes to water-related illness, half the hospital beds in the world right now are occupied because of water-related illness and disease and sickness. And I had a 1.5-year-old named Andy Bo that introduced me to the water crisis, and it's when he passed away when I was holding him. And so that just sorry about that. I don't know who that would be.
No worries.
They can leave a note. Man, it just it wrecked me seeing someone so young have their life cut so short just because they didn't have access to clean water. And it forever gripped my heart. It changed me, and it sent me on this quest and this journey, in this fight, to unite with the locals that face the problem on a day-to-day basis, and how can we empower them by putting the tools in their hands, by training them up and giving the knowledge, putting that knowledge in their heads, transferring that knowledge and say, you can do this. You can do it for yourself. Like, this isn't about, and if you sit down and you just, what I learned is if you live with them, listen to them and learn from them, they're going to tell you how to love them the best. And you'll learn truly the most sustainable way. And they will say they don't want charity. They want an opportunity. And so that's why we at Fight for the Forgotten in Water 4 say opportunity is greater than charity. That charity can be great, but opportunity is just always better. It just always is. And so we want to create opportunities for people to empower them, let them have ownership of it, create entities inside the country. So Water 4 now has, so Fight for the Forgotten's one team underneath 44 teams within Water 4. And it's beautiful, man. We've been able to empower and encourage and employ 396 people in the continent of Africa, 16 African nations. Last year alone, they drilled 690 water wells. And that served 172,000 people. And this is now, since inception, less than 10 years ago, they've been able to give them over 1 million people, like probably more like 1.5 million people, clean water. And it's them doing it for themselves. And I truly believe that's the way we'll knock out the water crisis. Isn't by having to go in and do it for these people who can't do it for themselves. It's like seeing people who face the problem as completely capable, completely able, willing, and to just pass the torch, pass the baton, like just let them do it. They want to. They just don't know how. They don't have the tools, and they just need a little kickstart.
Yeah. So it's for you. It's the ability to provide access to the education and the opportunities more than it is to actually just provide the resource.
Yeah, because we could take an army of volunteers, but the problem's still going to be there. And the thing is that the solution isn't with. I love people's hearts and wanting to volunteer, and that's truly awesome. But when it comes to water well drilling, or when it comes to most development work, it's investing your time in people who will become professionals at it. Right. Because business, if it's their job to wake up every day and go drill wells for people who really need it, they're going to be passionate about it. They're the answer to their country's own problem. It's way more sustainable that way. They become, if I put in martial arts terms, as you train them, they go from white belts to blue belts to brown belts, or purple belts, brown, and then black. And now we have like 396 guys that are probably all purple, brown, and black, probably more brown and black belts. And to take volunteers that are more like white belts, or invest your time and energy, and someone that's only going to go once a year for maybe 1 or 2 weeks a year isn't the best use of our resources or our time or our knowledge, or even the donors' funds whenever they give a donation. Mm-hmm. And so we've been able to see just our efforts grow exponentially by investing in the locals. And that's what we love to do is provide them the tools to solve their own problem.
Yeah, so I actually am really glad you mentioned that, because I hate to sound callous. I spent 9 months in Eastern Africa, and I spent a lot of time around NGOs and the Peace Corps, yeah. And I think that there's a lot of people doing good things. But I think that a lot of people make themselves feel better when they do something like that, but they don't necessarily look at the actual facets of the issue, and they're not actually solving the problem. They're making themselves feel better, but I don't know that they're making a difference.
Yeah, it's the BandAid Solution, and it's the. I agree, man. I've seen a lot, and I'm not going to name any by names, but you know exactly what I mean. Whenever most NGOs operate in the show up, and blow out technique, where they announce their arrival by having a parade. That's them coming into the village, having a parade, throwing a big party, getting a bunch of pictures, and then leaving, mm-hmm. and not anything behind that's going to last. It might have worked for a day or a week or a month, but most water wells, okay, so I think if I get the statistic right, there's 690,000 water wells in Africa that have been funded by NGOs. I think 260,000, 270,000 are out of commission. Most of them only last 11 months, unless the locals are trained to maintenance it, to repair it. And unless it's locally affordable, locally available materials, so if it's set up to be dependent on NGO, even if they don't know so, if someone doesn't know how to fix it, or if they can't afford to fix it, it's going to fail. It's going to fail. And so if it's dependent on us, we already failed even going in. But we are arrogant in ways of thinking that we don't deal with this and we're from the West. And so it's a cookie cutter solution. We have the blueprint. We have the answer. And really the locals are the ones that will be able to tell you if what you're doing is culturally sound and sustainable, and can they use it, and will they be able to fix it, and do they want it? That's another big thing.
Right.
Do you want this that we're going to bring in? A lot of people bring stuff in, spend tons of money, send tons of containers over, and then it gets there and it's never even used, or it's used for the pictures, and then the people are sitting there thinking, how am I going to use this long term?
And so let me ask you this, because I know we are on a bit of a time constraint here. What for people that are listening to this and might be moved by the work that you're doing and want to give back in some way, since we kind of talk about what doesn't work, what do you think is the best route for them?
Well, so we have a campaign right now at Water4. It's water4.org/dig deeper. And it's just a beautiful campaign because so in Congo, we've drilled 65 wells, have 20 people on full-time staff and another 12 part-time right now. Hopefully we get to bring those other 12 full-time. But it wouldn't have been possible at all. Those 65 wells, those 20 jobs, 32 jobs actually, that would not have been possible without the young men drillers. And they're a team out of Uganda that literally sacrificed a ton, left their families, risked their lives, almost got murdered their first day in Congo whenever they crossed the border. And instead of tucking their tail and running back to Uganda where they had their job and they had their wells, they had drilled over 100 water wells there. They saw me failing and my team failing. We had failed our first 8 or 9 water wells, and these guys were black belts and we were white belts trying to learn.
Right.
And so they literally came, lived with us for 3 months, helped us win about 8 or 9 times, get 8 or 9 victories. For me, it's a better victory than any cage fight ever could be whenever you drill a well. And so, they helped us drill our first 8 or 9 water wells. And so, but Dig Deeper, the campaign, water4.org/dig deeper, is a campaign that we're running, trying to raise $25,000 because we have a donor that's doing a match, a dollar for dollar match. And so he's going to kick in another 25 if we can raise that. And we got about $10,000 to go. So we've already raised, I think, 14,000, 15,000. It's only for the month of July, but it's going to give 5,000 people in a village called Lacho. It's going to give 5,000 people access to water for really the first time in their lives, clean water. Yeah. What we're doing is we're drilling 5 wells, setting up these 5 water vending kiosks where people come up and they set it under a tap. They pay 5 cents for 5 gallons. And so it's really affordable, but those incremental amounts over the course of a year will fund another water well. And so those 5 water points will each fund a new one. And so for $25,000 and this donor kicking in $25,000, basically that's going to do the 5 water vending kiosks, but then next year it'll do 5 more. And the year after that, it should do maybe 10 more. And so it's just going to keep growing and growing from there. And so if people want to give, it's about $10 to give a person clean water. And if someone wants to give 75, they can dig deep themselves and give something very, very generous like that. We give a T-shirt back to you as a big thank you. It's a Dig Deeper shirt. I love it. I was wearing it yesterday. It's a great shirt. And so we're really wanting to knock this out of the park with this campaign, and then hopefully knock out the water crisis for 5,000 people in Uganda.
Yeah, hell yeah. Damn, that's cool. Well, dude, I know you got to go, but I really appreciate you being taking the time to talk to our audience about your cause, and Lionheart Radio will definitely be buying some shirts.
Well, hey, I appreciate you and hearing your love for the Lionheart listeners, man. It makes me love them too, and so I appreciate everyone listening. It's a huge encouragement. If people want to follow me and my journey on Instagram or Twitter, it's at the Big Pygmy, so Pygmy. That's what the Pygmies call me over there. It's Mabutimang Bo is how you say it in their language. But yeah, Twitter, Instagram's that, and our website is water4.org/dig deeper.
Awesome, and we'll have all of those linked up in the show notes of this episode so people can find it.
Bro, you're the man. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, you too, brother. I appreciate it. All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to Lionheart Radio. I hope that the information from today's show will make you fitter, happier, and healthier. For the show notes of this episode and every episode, head to www.lionheartrad.io. Yep, just like Lionheart Radio. And please, if you have the time, head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. It really helps us to know that we're on the right track in delivering you reliable information and value. As always, feedback is welcomed. If you have any comments on the show or like to suggest a guest, send me an email at rick@luavive.com. That's LUAVIVE.com. Thanks for your support, and we will see you next time.
Bitch, I feel good. Don't I look stupendous? My shine is so endless, and shit you can do to end this. Even when I'm dead, niggas still gon' bump that chip shit. Coke, white, Escalade on cinches for you dipshit. So you won't forget this. Me and West nigga be the coldest.